Good morning, everybody, and happy Thursday. Welcome into Denver Sports Coffee Break, presented by Bath Fitter. I got Rachel V. Hill down here at Coors Field. It's actually beautiful. It was a little chilly when I got here, gentlemen, but now I'm like, all right, it's nice and sunny. I'm staying warm. We got Will Peterson, James Marilette also hanging out with you. D-Mac and hopefully Zach Byer are going to join us at some point, too. So we got a fun opening day celebration down here at Coors Field because, to be honest, today's the biggest day for the Rockies. Both of you, how are you, Will?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I mean, opening day, Mason and I went over it on Denver Sports Tonight last night on 104.3 The Fan. There were still tickets available, and part of the reason there were still tickets available is because they wanted $90 a pop to sit in left center field right below the rock pile. So it'll be full today, but I don't know if we'll have a total sellout. The Rockies may have overpriced this one a little bit.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, that is a prime example of just greed taking over, right? And Jake was down there yesterday, and he sent us a picture of the new menu. And what was it, like $15.85 for a beer? Like, okay. I mean, at some point, how many times can you just continue to gouge people? I'm sure it'll be 40 or $50 to park, all that kind of stuff. But hey, it's opening day. It's supply and demand. We get it. Go down, have a good time, have some fun, and hopefully it's a good day at the ballpark.
I'm actually really excited to hear from D-Mac and Zach because, to be honest, I feel like it's the party's usually always out there, so that's where the energy gets you really hyped and you finally get excited about opening day. It's also really weird, gentlemen. I was listening to the radio coming in and they were like, "Why do we call it opening day when technically opening day has already happened? Why don't they just call it the home opener?" And I was like, "That's actually a great question because it is no longer opening day. It's just the home opener."
That is a good point. Opening day was a week ago today. Today is the home opener. But, I don't know, it's tradition. Do they have bunting? Is there bunting out? The red, white, and blue, decorations? The little circle things? Surely they have bunting. All right, that makes it opening day. Yeah.
Okay. Will, what team are you on, opening day or home opener?
No, I'm fine with opening day. It's one of the great traditions of baseball. You have two opening days because all 30 teams want to be able to celebrate opening day in their ballpark, do a special anthem, a special first pitch, bring out all the teams on the field for introductions. I mean, if a team has the wrong schedule, they can be part of 3 or 4 opening days because they do 2 or 3 on the road and then 1 in their ballpark too. So there's definitely teams that go through all the pomp and circumstance multiple times in these first couple of weeks of the season.
I believe it's the third one for the Rockies already. Third one. It's their 7th
Oh,
game.
was the first one, was that the first Dodgers home game?
I believe so, yeah.
Interesting.
All right, though, like I said, the real party gets started out there, that's for sure. So I want to hear from both of you your best opening day story before I leave you. James?
I mean, I've had to work opening day, right? Real tough. But we're down there doing radio remotes and, tearing down all the radio gear and trying to get it in the car and get it back to the studio just about the time the party is getting out of hand. And there's been more than one time where we've been downwind when the police have had to mace the crowd.
My God.
So I don't know that was a ton of fun, but it was memorable. And last year when I was down there, I was filling in for Stokely and sitting in with Zach Bye, and I'm walking around. I had to go get my credential, which you guys had to already do this morning. The show starts at 11, and I'm walking back, and there's this lady, probably 50, right, my age, just upchucking in the street before 11 o'clock. I'm like, that's opening day. That's opening day.
Let's rally. Will Peterson, you got to give me something good, better than getting maced in a crowd.
Well, so I worked for a company that distributed local magazines to all the different bars, right, on opening day. And one of the sales guys one year took me under his wing, 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. And his rule was every bar we went into, we had to take a shot in that bar. So by noon, James probably knows what I'm talking about. By noon, I was kind of, we're not on the radio, so I'll say it. I was wobbling. Don't think I made it into the actual baseball game, but you know what? We got out tens of thousands of magazines to the people of Denver. So we did our job, and we had a good time.
What was your boss doing that day? Was he just asleep at the wheel or what?
I think he was with one of the radio hosts with tickets to the game. So
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
All right.
I love
Sounds like a great
rhymes with
person.
Mill. Rhymes with Mill.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, you can tell like opening day is just one of those days where it's so much fun, regardless if you're working or if you're not. I mean, I know a bunch of friends that are playing hooky from work. They're coming down here to hang out. Like I said, the weather is really nice, but I know we've got another special guest. So I'm going to peace out with you guys. I'll connect with you both in a little bit. Appreciate you both. And we'll bring in our special guest.
All right. Looking forward to it. It's D-Mac.
Hey, what's up, boys?
What's up, D-Mac?
How's the scene down there, my man?
Well, the sun is now out. It was freezing about an hour ago, but the sun is out. There's not a cloud in the sky. You can smell the sausage and the hot dogs, and the drinks are starting to be poured. And as you can see, we're down here in the McGregor Square area. So people are slowly getting here, But I'm thrilled to be here for opening day. It's always a great environment. I'll give you the 360. There you go.
We were doing better when the phone was just on you, D-Mac.
Here today, and look at this. Look at what the Monforts built. Look at what they've built here, guys. How do you not love baseball and real estate?
D-Mac, how many opening days do you think you've been to?
This is my 23rd opening day for the Colorado Rockies. I have been to this. That's crazy when you think about it. But I've been to opening day every year for 23 straight years.
Well, and I just blew it when Rachel asked us our favorite opening day memory. I was there for their first ever home opener. I was there for EY hitting the home run, but it was at Mile High. So when she asked the question, I was thinking about Coors Field and all of that. It was a different type of a thing. But so this is their 30th anniversary. So it's their 31st opening day, right? So you've been at 23 out of 31. That's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah, 2000. And that was back in my KBPI days. And we weren't exactly, we were drinking. What can I tell you? I mean, I did a morning show, and it was just insane drinking for like 5 straight opening days.
Well, what else is crazy is how much opening day has changed. So it was probably 20 years ago that we used to be able to buy a block of tickets for opening day, and they would give you free tickets to another game in the season. They were trying to incentivize you. Then it became, well, you get the second game for $1 a piece. And now Will just told us they were charging $90. They're $90 to sit out in left field today.
Wow. I think I'm like a lot of people with opening day. I count just being in Lodo being at opening day.
Right. Yeah.
Of those 23 years, guys, I think I might have been to 4 or 5 baseball games of those 23 years. How about that? Because, I've been very, very lucky for the past 14 years. I'm on the air during the game. So, you really don't go into the game. But there were times, that I, wasn't as lucky as I am now that I got to go to the game. That sounds weird. So, listen, guys, here's my funniest thing. My funniest thing about opening day, and I know this from experience. I can't believe how much effort people go to get to opening day and leave early. I mean, it's comical. And they have left early, like in close games, in like the 6th or 7th inning. And, I've always enjoyed like yelling at those people and mocking them as they leave early. So I don't really get that. But I think what opening day essentially is a celebration of Denver, Colorado, okay? And like most major cities, it's not perfect. There's things to work on, and you can just take a short walk, and see some of the situations big cities have to deal with not far from Coors Field. But let's hope we can all just be better as a society in terms of helping out situations like that. But we can still celebrate the vibrancy and the joy of having a great city. And the fact that the Rockies and a major league team are here in the heart of the city, I just think is absolutely fantastic. And as wonderful as the Atlanta Braves Stadium is, they built a $1 billion stadium out in the middle of the suburbs. So while I want the Broncos to go out to the boonies to have Bronco land, I would never, ever, ever, ever want anything but downtown baseball.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, part of what's special about it, and it's evolved over the years, over the nearly 3 decades, it's been 28 years since that building opened, but just the places you can walk to, that you can go to before the game, grab something to eat, grab some beverages, go to the game, then go out and party afterward. Like, I don't want to just park in a parking, like, you don't tailgate for baseball. It's a totally different thing. So they hit it out of the park, so to speak, when they put it there. It's the perfect location. It's still an awesome place to go down and go to a ball game. So you're right. It is a celebration more of that than necessarily, hey, this team, and we're really excited about what they're going to do. It's that spring is here, baseball's here, summer's right around the corner. That's what we're celebrating today.
Well, and real quick, guys, it is amazing that Coors Field was built 7 years before Empower Field at Mile High and has aged so much better. They could play in Coors Field for the next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. No one's going to be clamoring to move away from Coors Field, yet the architecture 7 years later at Empower Field was so blah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Listen, we've made fun of the rooftop, but I remember years and years, those seats were the worst seats in the ballpark and never used. If you look at the Oakland A's, they just put big canvas tarps over their pathetic stadium. And I wish the baseball team was better more consistently because overall it'd be fun. But guys, I've been to 23 now straight opening days. I've been to Rocktober, guys. I've seen them play big baseball games. I've been in the crowd with 50,000 people. I was there when Nolan hit his Father's Day walk-off and was bleeding all over his face. I mean, I've had some, all right, let me tell you when I became a real Rockies fan, okay? Because I grew up a Red Sox fan. I have a Red Sox tattoo. In 2004, I woke up my 4-year-old son to watch the Red Sox win a World Series so he could pass that tradition down to his family. A few years later, when my kids were, I'd say 9 and 7, we were at a Rockies Red Sox game, and Jason Giambi hit a pinch hit walk-off home run. And I exploded in cheers. And at that moment, I realized, holy cow, I'm actually a Rockies fan. Because when you put the Rockies and Red Sox next to each other and the Red Sox won, I looked in the joy of my 2 sons and what they were feeling, and I had that same feeling too. So for all those idiot Cubs fans out there, take your kid to a damn game and accept exactly where you live. And if Chicago's so great, go back to Wrigleyville.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you touched on part of what makes baseball so special and what makes Coors Field, kind of have a special place in our heart is I've been in that building to watch a game with my grandfather and my dad and all 3 of my kids, right? Like, it's the generational part of it, and all of them are different kind of stories, and all of them, are different experiences, but, you don't necessarily say that about a Nuggets game or a Broncos game or an Avs game. That's a baseball kind of thing of just going down on a random Thursday, hanging out with my grandfather when he was in his late 70s and having hot dogs and drinking a couple beers. Like, that's one of those things that is truly unique to baseball.
But I'll tell you this. I gave you an old man story there, I guess, because now my kids are 23 and 20. My son actually works downtown, so he's probably drinking right now someplace. Who knows what he's doing with his company? My younger son is playing baseball. He has a junior college baseball game today in Northern California where he lives, goes to school, and plays ball. I think they're taking on Cañada up there in Silicon Valley. Go Vikings at West Valley. So baseball has meant everything to me. My wife and I started a nonprofit organization to make baseball more affordable to lower income kids and families that couldn't afford suburban baseball. And we did do that for a few years, and I'm proud of what we did there. So that's my connection to baseball. It goes deep. But to a younger person, I'll go to you, Will. You're younger than us, at least. I'm not sure what attracts younger people to the Rockies and those that don't have the connections, James, that you and I are talking about. And I think that's a really fair question. Like, why do you care about baseball? Why should younger people in Colorado care at all if the team can't win? So we have our nostalgia, and we'll always have our nostalgia, so I guess we'll always be fans. But why will people become new fans of this team?
Yeah, that's a tough question because I have the nostalgia too. The Rockies started when I was 3 years old. They moved to Coors Field when I was 5, and my dad was a teacher. So we would go to so many summer day games together because he was off work and I was off school. So it worked out great that we would go to the 105 Thursday game and sit wherever we wanted and sneak past the ushers. Like, I still have those memories ingrained in my head, 5, 6, 7 games a summer. And then Rocktober happened when I was a senior in high school. So that was the perfect time for Rocktober to happen, fall of my senior year. It couldn't have come at a better time. And I still hold on to the memories of Rocktober. James knows I'm an encyclopedia when it comes to that '07 team. So yeah, that's for me. But you're right. How do we get 14, 15, 16-year-olds into the game? We might need another Rocktober, and I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. So that's the tricky part to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I have kids that are 17, 14, and 11. A year ago, I spent more money than I cared to buying them all Avs sweaters, and they were all into it for the playoff run, right? And we watched every single game, and we were on vacation and trying to find a place where we could watch games because they were that into it. They don't give a hoot that today is opening day. They don't. And they haven't asked me one time of, hey, we're going to go down to a Rockies game this year? So that's the part of it they got to figure out. And, you know, there's a reason why a lot of young kids in this town are Seahawks fans and, you know, Patriots fans or whatever, because the Broncos have been so bad they haven't seen that team win. You got to win for kids to get on board. They'll just follow somebody else or follow some other sport.
Yeah, the truth about baseball, too, guys, it's being played at a higher level than ever. It's more inclusive than ever. It's more worldwide than ever. I think by a mile, these recent rule changes have had significant impact to make the game better, period. So good for baseball for all those things. They'll go to robot umps for balls and strikes relatively soon, which again will make baseball better and faster. That we have that. I've always said a million times, guys, a sport should be played like it was invented yesterday. And baseball's getting there. Good for baseball. The Rockies are a different conversation. You know, they did some really great things. The ballpark is great. You can make fun of it, but McGregor Square, I mean, guys, it's fabulous what they've done down here. It really is. So they've created an environment. And you know what? Parking and getting around, it's actually pretty easy, relatively, considering it's in the middle of a city because of where it's located. Everything is great. Public transportation, no problem getting to a Rockies game. That's on you if you can't figure out how to get to Union Square. So everything is fantastic. How do you perform better on the field? And I know, James, you wrote at denversports.com about it's time for the Monforts to sell. Like, they're not good stewards of the actual product. And I don't think you're wrong about that. I just don't think it'll ever happen. And you know what? For years and years and years as a Red Sox fan, we suffered mightily. But when the Red Sox finally got the right owners, things changed dramatically. Same for the Cubs, by the way.
Yeah, and it's not about, hey, you need to get somebody in there like Greg Penner who just has, bottomless pockets and can spend whatever. That would help. But my biggest issue with Montfort as an owner is they don't have a plan. There's no plan of like, this is what we're going to do. Like, for me, it's always been, and now the rule changes make this, I think, even a better idea, but go with speed, right? You got that huge outfield to cover. Speed is cheap. Nobody overpays for speed. They overpay for power, and just have a bunch of gnats on the bases that drive people crazy, and they can't stand coming into Coors Field. Because the other thing is, speed travels. Speed isn't affected by altitude. That would be my approach. I don't know if it would work or not, but at least it would be an approach, and we could all look at it and say, yeah, look at this team they put together. It's like the Cardinals in the 80s with Vince Coleman and Willie McGee and Ozzie Smith and all these guys. At least it's a plan. Or if we were watching today and every guy that came up to bat when they put up their thing on the scoreboard was born in the 2000s, and we're watching a bunch of 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old kids, great. I'd be fine with that. The problem is they stink and they're old. That's a nasty combination.
Yeah, like, I hate saying this, but Charlie Blackmon's a problem. He's not a solution. And I'm not trying to throw him out like, yesterday's newspaper, if anybody's ever seen a newspaper. But that's a problem. You should have a young, dynamic right fielder. You should have you can have one of those. I guess you could have Chris Bryant. I mean, I guess. But, and I'm not pushing that. But let me tell you, there are new rules changes because they banned the shift and they made the bases bigger. Steals are way up. It's not a crazy thought, James. It would not have applied last year, but maybe actually what you're saying makes more sense. They do have a youngster, Zach Veen, in the minors who looks unbelievably promising. They got really unlucky with Brendan Rodgers, who was having an amazing year last year. So you're not that far off. But the biggest problem is pitching. That's the biggest problem. And good luck getting a free agent pitcher of any that's good to come to Coors Field. So you at the end of the day, you've got to be a baseball savant in developing pitching, meaning identifying these kids when they're 17, 18, 19 years old and figuring out how to keep them in the program. I mean, Marquez is one of those guys. He is. Freeland's one of those guys who's starting today right out of Thomas Jefferson High School. Ubaldo Jimenez was one of those guys. I mean, we've had those guys throughout the year, but we just haven't had enough of them, and we haven't had the depth.
All right, D-Mac, we appreciate it. We're going to let you go here for a few minutes. We'll get back to you a little later in the show. Go around McGregor. See if you can find someone puking or something. James, All right, see you, D-Mac. James, we are going to move on to some nuggets because we want to know in hot water, how hot is it for the Denver Nuggets? Because I don't know if you saw the injury report this morning. Well, two things. First of all, they clinched the 1 seed last night because the Pelicans beat the Grizzlies in overtime. They're up 6 with 11 seconds left and still had to go to overtime. That was pretty pathetic. So they back into the 1 seed. I want your thoughts on that. But in terms of how hot this water is, James, the injury report has come out. Jamal's questionable. KCP's questionable. Jokic is questionable. Aaron Gordon's questionable. MPJ's questionable. You sensing a theme here? All 5 starters questionable tonight in Phoenix. They may play no one.
Which I'm fine with, right? I was anti-load management all year long. They've clinched the 1 seed, and they ain't catching the teams in the East that are ahead of them, right? So they're not worried about, hey, we're trying to get home court advantage in the NBA Finals. They've given away too many games up to this point, so now the last 3 games of the year are completely meaningless. So don't get anybody hurt. Just you might as well go into the postseason while stumbling. While they're 11-9 at the moment after the All-Star break, there's a chance they could be sub 500 after the All-Star break and be the 1 seed, which is kind of remarkable. Doesn't matter. The only thing that matters now, Will, is being completely healthy when game 1 of the first round rolls around. So Nikola Jokic in the calf and Jamal Murray in the thumb and Michael Porter Jr. and I don't know what his injury is, but whatever, sit him. Put him in bubble wrap, leave him on a shelf for a couple of weeks, and let's just go take care of business in the playoffs. In terms of how hot is the water, very. So look, I'm excited that they're the 1 seed. First time they've ever been that in their NBA history. First time I've ever seen it as a longtime fan. First time the road to the NBA Finals has ever gone through Denver. That's awesome. But now the pressure's on. Because if you don't make it to the NBA Finals, look, if they get there and they lose to the Sixers or the Bucks or the Celtics, so long as they don't get embarrassed, which I don't think would happen, we would all say great job. But if you don't make the NBA Finals this year with home court advantage in every series in the West, with games 1 and 2 on your home court and a chance to get a 2-0 lead, and at that point you're off to the races, right? You got to lose 4 out of 5 to lose the series. If they don't go to the NBA Finals, then one of 2 things needs to happen. The head coach is gone, or you blow up this core. Because if they can't get there this year with home court, with the best roster arguably they've ever had, Calvin Booth says it's the best starting 5 in the NBA, and a Western Conference that is down. I mean, they've won 52 games and they've already clinched the West. Like, that tells you all you need to know. If you can't get there this year with this group, coaches and players, it's never going to happen.
To be clear, when you say the core, you mean everyone except for Jokic, right? Oh, come on, James.
It depends on what you're offering me. It depends on what you're offering me.
He should have won 3 straight MVPs, and you want to get rid of him if the playoffs don't go well?
Let's play the ultimate worst-case scenario game, okay? Let's say they face the Pelicans in the first round and get swept. And he's 1-12 in his last 13 playoff games. At some point, well, what are we doing here?
He's untouchable, James. Absolutely untouchable.
He's not. He's not. Broncos almost traded John Elway in 1992. No, if this team flames out in the first round, no one's untouchable. No one.
No, there's not a single player in the NBA I'd trade him straight up for.
You wouldn't trade him for Giannis?
No.
You wouldn't trade him for Embiid?
No.
You wouldn't trade him for Jason Tatum?
No.
Okay.
Would you trade him for any of those three guys?
I'd probably trade him for all three. Yeah.
Wow.
And here's the other thing. And look, I'll admit I'm perhaps a bit of a prisoner of the moment, and he was awful the other night in Houston. Coming back from the injury, it was ugly. He probably does need to get some minutes here in the last three games to, just get the rust off. Have it be the last game at home against Sacramento. It's probably a meaningless game for both teams. But you know what we saw against Houston? We saw what Nikola Jokic is going to look like when he starts to go on the wrong side of the hill. And it is an ugly brand of basketball that is completely ineffective. So I don't know when that's happening. I don't know when it's happening, but you want to trade him before that happens? If they flame out in the first round of the playoffs, Nikola Jokic is on the trading block for me.
Rachel V. Hill, please talk some sense into him. We can't hear you, unfortunately. Could you
Can you hear me now?
Here we go.
Can you hear me now?
Live
James
TV.
Marilat.
What?
Oh my goodness. What did I just hear come out of your mouth? One game and all of a sudden you've flipped on Nikola Jokic?
I was playing the hypothetical that if they flame out, let's say they get swept in the first round. I mean, that would be the worst case scenario. And he's 1-12 in his last 13 playoff games, and now you can't make the excuse of, well, no Jamal, no MPJ. Something's got to change. I would start with the coach. I wouldn't start with the players. But if you want to blow up the core, it ain't just MPJ, it ain't just Jamal, it ain't just Aaron Gordon. Nikola Jokic would be on that list too.
Absolutely not. I could not disagree more.
We can blow up the core, but how about not the guy that was able to completely carry the team into the playoffs alone by himself last year? Let's just get him some other help. Right. But I'm with you that if they don't make the playoffs if they get blown out in the first round, maybe even possibly the second round, the coach has got to go. But getting rid of Nikola Jokic, that's insanity, James.
It depends on the offer. If the offer was Giannis, you wouldn't make that trade?
No.
Oh, my gosh. If it wasn't 3 or 4 of the great young players on the Thunder, you wouldn't look at that and say, maybe.
No, because, James, real quick, how can you say Malone is the problem and then not want to see Jokic without Malone in a Nuggets uniform? Because that's what you'd probably get next year.
That would be the first thing I'd want to see. It would, but you want to trade him at the high point. So who's the kid, the French kid, who's like the number one pick?
He can be a Nugget his whole career.
Would you trade him for the number 1 overall pick this year?
Absolutely not. That kid is unproven. I don't need. Look, yeah, no, he's unproven.
I would at some point. It's like it ain't working here. 1-12 in their last 13 playoff games. At that point, give me Wembanyama and I'll move on.
Because of the coach who you don't like.
I agree. That would be what I'd want to do first, but it would be on the table for me. It would have to be Giannis, Embiid, the number 1 overall pick, the 3 or 4 young players from the Thunder. It would have to be an offer I couldn't refuse. But to act like that's not on the table at all, I think is silly.
I'm shook by this conversation that we're even having. I can't believe that this is a discussion that we're actually having. James, what has Giannis or Embiid done in the last 6 months that you're much better than Jokic? And you can't give me the 50-burger Embiid drop last night or 2 nights ago.
Well, he's going to win the MVP, and he's going to win it going away.
Because he campaigned for it. Because the writers feel bad for him.
No, Jokic had it after Embiid no-showed here, and he's been awful since then. He's either been hurt or he's been awful. So
he played 1 game.
And he was terrible. And we got a glimpse of what Nikola Jokic is going to be when he gets over the hill. So you want to make sure you trade him before he gets to the top, because when he's over the hill, we saw in Houston, that's the kind of player he's going to be, and it's completely ineffective.
Well, I guess the Warriors should just trade Steph Curry then and say, peace out. He struggled too.
Yeah,
Hey,
he's going to get over the hill.
if they had lost to the Nuggets in 2012, they were gonna blow it up and move on and do something different, because it's the definition of insanity to just keep doing the same thing. Like, well, if they lose in the first round next year and they roll back with the same group next year, we're all going to be like, this is going to be different. I mean, the topic was in hot water. That group's in hot water because they either get to the NBA Finals now or it's light a firecracker and blow it up time.
When should the Chiefs look at trading Patrick Mahomes? I just want to make sure we know how this argument works.
He's won 2 Super Bowls and been to 3. Nikola Jokic has lost a Game 7 on his home court. He got swept by the Suns and got kicked out of Game 4 because he was so frustrated and threw a ridiculous punch 95 feet from the hoop. And then he lost in 5 last year in the first round. That's not a Patrick Mahomes type of resume at all.
Yeah, his supporting cast was Austin Rivers and Facu Campazzo.
Okay, so what will the excuse be this year? What will the excuse be this year?
Well, I think we all know what the excuse will be. It'll be the head coach.
Michael Malone.
If things go poorly, it's because they're not listening to their head coach anymore. And we saw glimpses of that in Houston the other night. And once your voice gets stale as a head coach, you're gone. Because George Karl won 57 games, but for whatever reason, those guys wouldn't listen to him in the playoffs. And the Kroenkes made a change. I fully expect they'll make a change 10 years later if the same thing happens this time around.
He won Coach of the Year that year, too.
For the record, I'm with you. Of course I'm with you. That would be the number one change I would make. And I would want to see what can this group, this core, do with a competent coach. Let's say Nick Nurse is out in Toronto, right? A guy who's won a ring. Would I want to see this core with Nick Nurse as the head coach? Of course I would. Of course. All I'm saying is, if they flame out and lose in 4 or 5 in the first round this year, everything's on the table. It just is.
I agree. Everything is on the table, but Jokic. I'll put Jamal on the table. I'll put MPJ on the table. I'll put Aaron Gordon on the table. I'll put Malone on the table. But Nikola Jokic, off the table. He sits next to us.
I'm with Will, James. I just can't imagine a Nuggets team in the next few years without Nikola Jokic. That sounds like insanity to me.
Well, if they lose in the first round this year, he's essentially Carmelo Anthony if you take away the bubble year.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what he is. He's Carmelo Anthony in the postseason.
How many MVPs does Carmelo have?
Hey, throw a number 15 jersey on a good player and lose in the first round. That'll be the Nuggets.
Oh, my gosh, James Verlack. I wish I could see the comments right now.
It's a big if, but all I'm saying is to not have it on the table. And again, it would have to be Giannis, Embiid, Tatum, the number 1 overall pick, a package of young stars. Like, it would have to just blow me away. But to say you wouldn't trade him for Giannis in this hypothetical game, if they lose in the first round this year, a guy who's won 2 MVPs and an NBA title is, that's nuts. I'm not the one that's off his rocker at that point.
I'm just kind of speechless.
You're coming around, Rachel. You're coming around.
I don't want to. I understand your point, and that's the best part about discussions is I can see your point, but that doesn't mean I'm 100% on board with you. Everyone else, see you later. I'm sorry. Good luck doing whatever you're going to do next. But Jokic is tough. He got drafted during a Taco Bell commercial, won 2 MVPs. Like, that is just a tough thing to be like, peace out.
It's an awesome story, but he's also your most valuable asset. And I would, at that point, if it was, hey, you get to have Murray, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, and whatever stars you get in exchange for Jokic with a new coach, I'd be interested in seeing it.
But I don't even. No, okay. All right. I'm just speechless with this conversation, Will Peterson. Do you have anything
I think we know my Monday column at denversports.com.
Oh, I can't wait to read the comments on that one.
No, I'm good on this one. You said you see his point. I do not see his point. So I will not be coming around on this one.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Let's just leave it there. We'll go back a little bit to opening day. Obviously, D-Mac was out there. like you mentioned, the weather is becoming beautiful out here, you guys. Like it finally warmed up. I can feel it. I'm obviously a brunette. I can feel it on my head. It feels so good. And then obviously you can see everybody out here. I was showing a few clips of players earlier, but it's a beautiful day out here for opening day. I'm happy it's not Tuesday or Monday when it was snowing, because that was brutal. So we got opening day weather. I feel like you both actually should come down here and experience this, because it is a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm headed there as soon as I'm done on coffee break. So
yeah,
I will
Will's
see you
going.
down there. I'm gonna head down there as soon as we wrap up here. I'm really excited. Listen, guys, because the thing about opening day is most of the time people don't really care about the game, right? We know that. But today is the peak. No one cares about the baseball game. So what's a critical part of that? The weather. So I'm glad to hear it's warming up. That's good for the economy. It's good for the bars. The more people out and about in downtown Denver, especially these days, the better.
It's so beautiful. James, I know it's a bit of a drive, but it is very nice outside. It's looking like it's going to be a fun day.
You can get a ticket for $90 in left field.
Yeah, that's the problem. I got to find a ticket. If I can find a ticket, I could be talked into coming down there.
There you go. You got to get on StubHub or whatever it is nowadays. I don't even know. See if you can find a ticket, because it's stunning down here. But Will Peterson, I'll see you down here in a little bit. Thank you so much for hanging as we bring in Andrew Mason, because, of course, we got to talk about a little bit about the Broncos. Let's see. There he is. Andrew
Hello.
Mason,
Yeah.
good morning.
What's up? Good morning. How are ya?
I'm fantastic.
living the dream down here at my parents' house.
Is it pouring rain, or what's going on?
Okay. It's partly cloudy. Okay. It looks like it's rain over my shoulder. That's actually kind of frosted on keeps a screen that keeps the bugs out. But the neighbor's house is nearby, so that gives a little bit of privacy. But that's the thing. It looks like it's raining there, but it's really not. It's just actually pretty nice here. It's pretty warm. It's going to be over 90 today down here.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
90 degrees. Okay, well, I'm happy it's like 40 degrees currently at the moment. So I'm just thrilled about that. I'm very jealous of you, Mace. But Mace, obviously the NFL draft is going to be coming up later this month, and everyone is kind of asking, is there any position that the Broncos actually don't need, like that they're just completely set on? Because everyone's kind of like, hey, they can really use help everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one that you might say, okay, maybe you could get by without adding is wide receiver, just because they're looking to trade receivers potentially. I mean, they haven't done it. They haven't gotten an offer that they wanted, but they fielded calls on the wide receiver position, which in part tells you that they're willing to have discussions, which tells you, okay, they probably got one too many. I mean, what they could use is a clear wide receiver one. Maybe that's Jerry Jeudy, but we still don't know about that yet. But that's the thing about where they stand right now with those 2 third-round picks. Now, they don't have any position where it's like, okay, we have to get a starter today because we need that player to start in week 1. They don't have any positions like that right now, and free agency and what they've done has a lot to do with that. However, I think you're right, Rachel. There is not really a position where you look at and say, okay, they can't add to that position group and have it, and there wouldn't be a scenario where it wouldn't make sense. Every position would, which puts the Broncos in a really good spot because they have the freedom to say, we're going to take the best player on the board regardless of position. And when you have that freedom, that's where you end up getting good values.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, they don't have any gaping holes, right? They're like, oh my gosh, if they don't draft a, insert position here, who's going to play there? That's the good thing. I would say quarterback with Jarrett Stidham as the backup is probably another spot you wouldn't look at unless Hendon Hooker falls to you. That would be pretty tempting.
Yeah,
that would be pretty tempting.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to go with Hooker if he's there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, is he still being, I know he was being talked about like late second, early third. Is that still the range of where he's being looked at?
It is at this point. I mean, the thing is, because you're potentially looking at 4 top 10 quarterbacks and then a gap, he's probably the next one off the board. So it's, okay, when does a team that wants him feel frisky enough to make that call, feel that the risk-reward ratio is right. I mean, it would be amazing for the Broncos if Hendon Hooker dropped to pick 67 because either you take him or potentially you trade that pick and get back much more in terms of value. But if I'm the Broncos, I would take Hendon Hooker. Now, that being said, Sean Payton sounded very much like somebody who was confident in Jarrett Stidham the way he talked about him at the league meetings in Phoenix last week. However, I would think that if he's looking at the draft board, sees Hendon Hooker there at pick 67, that'd be like, okay, there's excellent value here. Let's just overstock the quarterback position and figure it out. The other thing on Hooker is because he's coming off the ACL, you could put him on non-football injury for a year because he suffered that injury at Tennessee, of course. So it would count as a non-football injury because it didn't happen as part of his NFL training or being a part of an NFL team. You could put him on NFI and sign him to a contract, and even though it'd be a 4-year contract, you'd have 5 years of team control potentially because if when you're on NFI, it's not a year of service time. So this is an interesting thing. If you drafted Hendon Hooker and he became a long-term quarterback, you'd have that 5th year to where you could just say, okay, we're going to give him the restricted free agent tender. So for even that long-term purpose, I would think you think about Hendon Hooker as well if he somehow is sitting there at 67, which I don't think he'll be.
That would be. I'm all in on Hendon Hooker. I know some people are a little iffy, but personally, I like him. What happened to him is tragedy, but I mean, I say go for it if you can. And even if, honestly, if he could play next year, I know obviously with the injury, you never know what can happen. But, like, if he can have a little bit of competition with Stidham, I'm kind of here for it, James Marilat.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there'd be no downside to it, right? Like, if you drafted him, he doesn't have to play right away, as Mason was talking about. He can recover from that knee injury. If Russ plays great, once Hendon Hooker is healthy, he's either, all right, a really good backup, or he would have some trade value. Like, you would probably be able to trade him at that point for a pick better than 67 in a future draft if Russ is fixed and Russ is the answer. So to me, there would be no downside to it, especially since, going back to what we started the conversation about, they don't have some gaping hole. It's not as though, like, oh, if they don't get a middle linebacker or they don't get a corner or they don't get, a left guard, who's going to play there? That gives them a little bit of that luxury. So, yeah, why not take a flyer on somebody who has huge upside?
Is it sad that I was just, like, automatically passing over Russell Wilson because my faith is so low with it? Like, thinking back, a year ago, you guys, we were getting ready to see Russell Wilson throw out the first pitch here, and everyone was so excited. It was such a major moment. And look at where we are now with the starting QB. It's kind of crazy what can happen in a year, Mace.
It is. I mean, I was thinking to myself this morning, not long after I awoke, and I was thinking about opening day, and I pondered the thought of what would the reaction at Coors Field be if Russell Wilson were throwing out the first ball today?
Not
would
good.
Would it get cheered?
Not good.
Would it be? Yeah. Would there be boos? Like,
yes.
At best, I think it's mixed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be a smattering of applause.
It would be just insanely awkward. Like, I'm sure it would almost be. I don't know if people would really boo him, James. I don't know if you're the one who said that. I think it would just be more of a silent type thing. Like,
maybe
what he's turned himself into here is like he's not a villain, but he's just kind of this like awkward character who was supposed to be the savior and like didn't end up being what he was promised. So it's this like awkward relationship with Broncos country and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it would honestly probably like be one big collective eye roll. Like, really, this guy. But a year from now, when he comes out there after they go 12-5 and get all the way to the AFC title game, he'll get a huge ovation. So if it can change bad in a year, guys, it can change good in a year too.
The only thing America loves more than tearing somebody down is a redemption story.
Correct.
A comeback story.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. Well, we're going to bring in Jake Shapiro because we do need to do who we believe is going to win today's opening day game against the Washington Nationals. Of course, James, you say a lot can happen in a year where a team can unfortunately go down, but then they can rise up. That's probably not going to happen with the Rockies this season again, as they've struggled for many years now. But who does everybody have here on opening day out in this lovely 40-degree weather we've got here? James Marilat, hit me with it.
I'm going to take the Rockies. Kyle Freeland, looked good in his first outing. He pitched really well in the World Baseball Classic, so he's, it's not just a second game for him. He's up and running. And Josiah Gray on the other side for the Nationals struggled in his first outing. So I think the Rockies have the pitching advantage today. The Nationals are not a particularly good team. Home field advantage carries them. I think the Rockies win today. I think they win pretty easily.
Andrew Mason.
Mace isn't on right now, Rachel, so I'm going to go ahead and talk. But I'm going to assume Mace has the Rockies. I'm going to give you two stats, Rachel. Josiah Gray allowed the most home runs in Major League Baseball last year. He also surrendered the most walks. I am going to take the Colorado Rockies in this ball game. Josiah Gray isn't very good. The Washington Nationals aren't very good. The Rockies should be able to get this one and make the home crowd happy.
By the way, can we all not comment on Jake Shapiro with the collared shirt and the sweater? I mean, look at this guy.
You should see the pants he's got on. I was like, Jake.
Goodness. Wow.
Let's see it, Jake. Let's see it. Oh, yeah. No, I'm also taking the Rockies with you both here today. I'm feeling it. We are family singing here in the stands. Like, I'm feeling good about it. The energy is starting to really pop off, so I'm taking the Rockies too. It doesn't happen very often, but I'm here for it, gentlemen. So let's freaking go. But that's going to conclude our opening day coverage here down at Coors Field. Of course, Dave Merla, I appreciate you. Will Peterson, D-Mag, Andrew Mason, Jake, the whole crew really hopped in today. So it's always an absolute pleasure. And to everybody in the comments, we love seeing you guys hang out with us as well. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. for another episode of Coffee Break. Peace out, everybody. Have a wonderful Thursday. We'll see you later. Bye.